In my second lecture, I mentioned the palindromic arrangement of the 9 strings of the monumental boviform lyre, which dominated the musical sphere from the late 4th millennium down to the 3rd millennium and surviving during the 2nd millennium as a smaller instrument. During the late 4th millennium, these lyres were usually played accompanied to the sound of a large wooden drum, the Sumerian ala, and from the old Akkadian period, with the copper kettle drum, the lilisu, for temple liturgy. I further mentioned that bilingual Sumerian Akkadian lexical texts committed to cuneiform clay tablets the fundamentals of music theory were descriptive rather than prescriptive, in that a scribe described the instrument rather than gave instruction as to how it should have been tuned. The strings were enumerated in a palindromic order as first, second, third, and fourth strings of the front, fifth string, fourth string of behind, third string of behind, second string of behind, and behind string. Adjectives complemented some of the terms. Thus, we have a symmetrical system simplified as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 equals 6, 3 equals 7, 2 equals 8, and 1 equals 9. Our cognitive bias suggested that this arrangement was built from just fifths and just fourths, and that their alternation resulted in a diatonic and heptatonic system, the 8th and 9th strings being superfluous as octaves of the 1st and 2nd strings of the front. However, the description of the strings of the lyre in this text never mention either that fifths and fourths were just, or that the system was diatonic and heptatonic, with strings 8 and 9 being at the octave of strings 1 and 2 of the front. Our Pythagorean bias thought either in terms of how intervals would have been tuned, and that the system was irrevocably diatonic and heptatonic. However, unbiased reasoning would have dismissed the conclusions of the original cognitive bias with the conclusion that we were looking at a system of a symmetrical enneachordal, enneatonic system with strings of indeterminate values. Although I suggested at the time, when we discussed text Dabney 232 in 2008, that the fifths and fourths within would have been just, but excluding the heptatonic proposition. I did so as reductio ad absurdum, or apogogical argument, or proof by contradiction, establishing my initial bias as the logic of a contrary. While this bias assumed that fifths and fourths were just, it became the basis for further study, fired by further objective evidence. Then the study of 4 mathematical texts from the temple library of Nippur, dated from about 2300 BCE, offered a series of reciprocals, the numbers of which establishing a series of pitches set within a range from 36 to 81, attesting of 2 concurrent scales, which, while respecting the values of just fourths and just fifths, quantified pitches of the enneatonic system with pitch variations distinguishing them from the biased pseudo-Pythagorean paradigm. It is systematically important to add that the Niebuhr numbers quantified both string lengths and frequencies. This constituted the evidence of a specific tuning, at least for the Mesopotamian Bronze Age.